Hello, I'm the Screen Hopper, and yes, I am fat. Now, you might remember me, or not, from my last review when I reviewed the heap of crap Crocodile. But today, I'm reviewing something a little different. It. So here we are, Stephen King's It. And from the beginning the film looks promising. It's based off a Stephen King novel, hence the title, and even stars Tim Curry as Pennywise the clown. So already there are high hopes for this film. But that's where we reach our first problem. You see, it's not a film. Well, not the kind of films we're used to anyway. You see, it was a TV film that aired originally as 2 individual parts, so I'm guessing being a TV film it does explain some of the issues with it not being Hollywood standard, and how they got away with using shots like this. But we'll get to that later. The film, well, 2-parter, follows 7 people who, after the deaths of a few children, go to Maine and return to their childhood town to confront a killer clown that they believe to have destroyed as children. We first see them all individually in separate segments as adults, and after a phone call from one of their lucky 7, they all flash back memories on when they first saw it. In other words, the clown. Oh yes. This of course then follows a younger cast of actors portraying the adults' younger selves. Each segment is different and each has its own moments and problems. So buckle up, because we're going through each segment one by one, story by story, 1 to 7, starting unpredictably from the beginning. Kicking off then with segment number 1. After the deaths and disappearances of a group of kids in the area, one of the locals questioned the police whether or not the incidents are related, but of course they deny it and he is turned away. He then finds a photo of a young boy he recognises and starts to contact his old friends one by one. In other words, the other 6 characters. He begins by contacting the old gang's leader Bill, who after hearing of the clown's return and of the picture found has a flashback. So we then see young Bill making a paper boat for his brother. Yes, the boy in the picture. The boy, or better known as Georgie, then goes out alone to sail it. Now I know young Bill was ill, so he couldn't exactly go with his brother, but at the end of the day that kid's about 6, so why his parents let him go out alone? It's not like he's playing just outside the house. In this shot alone it clearly shows him passing at least 4 houses. It sucks! It just shows how much his parents care. Anyway, the boat then eventually falls down a drain, and so the boy tries to look for it, but he can't see it. Just before giving up, he then encounters Pennywise the dancing clown, or should I say, killer clown, who tries to lure the kid into the drain with him. And the boy isn't really interested at first. Well, that is until Pennywise pulls out the kid's boat, and then of course the boy wants it. He reaches out to take it, but then is grabbed by the clown and killed. How tragic. If only his parents cared more about him, maybe this would not have happened. But then again, you can't just blame one group of parents for not caring, because the girl who died at the beginning of the film was about 5 or 6, and she was riding her bike unsupervised nowhere near her house. I mean, yeah, sure, she died outside her house, but that's not where she was riding her bike. Does nobody care in this town? No, I know there's been so many children killed or missing. It's because the parents are letting their 6-year-old kids play halfway down the street unsupervised. It sucks. After the funeral, young Bill goes into Georgie's bedroom and looks at his picture. The photo then winks at him and begins to pus with blood. His parents then come into the room just to find the photo album on the floor. His mother then picks the book up and puts it back on the shelf, oblivious to the blood it's caked in. In other words, she can't see it. No, none of them can, just Bill. That's then followed by a ridiculous transition between past Bill and present Bill. I know what you're thinking. How is it ridiculous? Well, it's not entirely the transition itself, it's more so the reaction. I mean, just watch this. Just watch the way young Bill puts his hand to his face. Oh no! It's so cliche. Also, watch the small tweaks he makes to his positioning. He's clearly being told by the director where to move his head. Terrible. Anyway, Bill then packs his things and heads off to Maine, leaving behind his beloved wife to wonder what the hell's going on. So for the first segment, it isn't bad. It isn't great, but the moments with the clown are quite entertaining. And the young actor playing Bill actually does a respectable job. Yes, he has his crappy moments, but other than that, he's not that bad. I'd say he was easily the best child actor in the whole film, although it's not saying much, and when he stutters, it sounds believable. Unlike the older actor who sounds more like he's been punched in the stomach and is fighting for air.
This is crazy. It's just crazy.
I love you.
Overall, it's definitely not the worst out of the 7. I mean, sure, it has some terrible shots, but to start off, it's okay. We then move on to segment number 2, where we're introduced to the architect Ben, and after breaking his award and handing a bottle of champagne to his chauffeur, he gets a phone call. He then flashes back to his younger, more podgier self, where he is starting at his new school. He then meets young Beverly Marsh, who we get to soon, gets chased by the local hard-nut wannabes, and then hides in a conveniently placed tunnel to wait for them to pass. He then meets young Bill and young... later. Goes home, writes Bev a poem, beats up his cousin, talks to his mum and cycles off in a strop. He then returns to where he met Bill and the other guy and sits down to think. A man then starts shouting his name, so Ben goes searching for the caller. He wanders over to a big swamp where he sees his deceased father somehow standing on water.
That's my home now, son.
But surely that's not his real dad. Nah, I'm just sure it's the clown fooling around. Ben then watches as his father turns into the clown. Told you. The clown then suddenly disappears. As it does, a skeleton reaches out of the water to grab young Ben. The flashback then ends and we see Ben at the top of a building block. He drops his bottle of booze and holds his head in terror. So in terms of storyline and plot, this wasn't a bad segment. But in terms of entertainment, then it just comes across as dull and boring. Much like this review. The only thing that's worth watching in the whole segment is the part with the clown. But even that is short-lived. So overall, this segment is good on plot, but bad on entertainment. I guess you can't win them both. It's not as good as the first segment. Segment number 3 then introduces Beverly Marsh, the girl Ben fancies from school. And I must start off by saying, what a slut. Now, I don't like saying that word, but when describing this character, I don't have much of a choice. As a kid, she flirts around with everyone. 1 minute she likes Ben, the next she likes Bill, then she teases this guy, then the ginger kid. She won't make up her mind. Even as an adult, she hasn't improved much.
I fell in love with all you guys that day.
No, I'm sure I've just got the wrong end of a fairly large stick. I'm sure she's just curious, you know, just joking around a bit. That is, unless you read the book, where they keep their so-called power bond intact. She has sexual intercourse with all the boys. Yes, all 6 of them. And if that wasn't bad enough, they do it in a sewer. They're only about 10. It's wrong.
Beautiful.
Anyway, that's the book. Back to the film. So yes, segment number 3. And after securing a deal with a Japanese business, Beverly goes home to celebrate with her lover and work partner, Tom. As he goes out to get some more champagne, Beverly gets a call. She then packs her things and tries to explain why she's got to leave. However, her abusive lover doesn't like that. He smacks her around the kisser, then threatens her with a belt.
Too long since last time.
Put that thing down.
She then plucks up the courage to stand up for herself and throws a glass container at his head. She then threatens him to stay away.
I will kill you, do you understand? I will kill you.
She then gets in a taxi and is on her way to Maine. But of course, like the others, the segment is not short of a flashback.
Daddy, breakfast is ready.
We then see young Beverly making her father breakfast before answering the door. No one is there, but a note is on the floor. Well, no one is there other than a tub of lard hiding in a nearby bush. I must say, he's chosen his hiding place very well. You'd never have known he was there spying on her. Beverly's father then discovers that she got poetry from a boy and smacks her in the face. I wonder how he'd react if he read the book. She then runs away and hides in a bush to cry. Ben then sneaks up on her and invites her to what they call the Barrens, in other words, the swamp area. She then meets the others and helps them build a dam. How lovely. Later that night, we then see her in the bathroom getting ready for bed. She then starts to hear voices coming from the sink's plug hole. That's then followed by a red balloon coming out of the sink that bursts blood all over the bathroom. She then runs to tell her father, but of course he can't see the blood, only she can. In this segment, the clown isn't seen, he's only heard.
Die if you try to fight us. You'll die if you try.
So overall, this segment's much like the second. It's more about plot than horror. And for a horror TV film, show, anything, you expect a little bit more than what you're getting. So, in terms of scares, it's a little disappointing. We then move on to segment number 4, where we're finally introduced to this kid, Eddie. Told you we'd get to him. We first see him packing his unnecessary medication and saying goodbye to his overprotective mother. She tries to stop him leaving, but of course he doesn't listen. He gets in his car and is driven away. Although we don't actually see him pick up the phone, we kind of gather that he's already had the call, so that's not a problem. He then of course has a flashback and appears back in his youth. We then see him and the others watching the film I Was a Teenage Werewolf in their local Paramount theatre, where they kick a box of popcorn off the edge and pour one of their drinks on none other than the Hard Nut Wannabes. They then leg it out of the theatre, stare at the creepy swamp building and walk home. Eddie's mother then comes out the house and sends his friends away. She then takes him back into the house, telling him not to go into the school showers anymore because he could catch germs. The next day, his teacher then notices that he hasn't washed and sends him back to the showers alone. The showerheads then come to life and start to reach out for him. Pennywise then appears out of the plug hole as Eddie moves away. This sequence is actually quite well done. It shows good use of stop motion animation, and Pennywise, as always, is creepy but funny.
Here I am, Wheezy. Hey, you're gonna like it down here. Won't do any good to run, girly boy.
He then shows Eddie his beautiful teeth as the flashback comes to an end. Eddie then looks back to his driver on the platform as the train leaves the station. This segment isn't that bad. It's a lot better than the second and miles better than the third, but then again, that's not saying much. I'd say it was equal to the first. It's not bad, but it's not great. But Pennywise, on the other hand, is brilliant.
Oh, come back anytime. Bring your friends.